Okay, if everybody would like to grab a seat, please, we'll get the meeting started. My name is Keith Raymond. I'm the president of the Lucknow and District Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Thanks very much for coming. One thing I will mention before I forget is the Lucknow Kinsman Club have donated bottled water at the bar there tonight if anyone would like one. I'm going to introduce the 4 candidates that are attending here tonight, as well as our moderator, and then we'll move into the question and answer period after that. So first candidate, candidates for mayor, Brian McLaren on my far right is a retired teacher with a lifelong connection to Huron, Kinloss. He moved here to the area permanently after his retirement. He's married with 2 adult children, and he is the president of the Bruce Beach Cottagers Association. Past president. Mitch Twolan, the incumbent, has served on council since 1999. He owns and operates Lake Range Realty Limited in Point Clark. He was raised in Ripley and has spent most of his life in Huron, Kinloss. He and his wife Brittany live in Blair's Grove, and they have 3 children. Candidates for deputy mayor, Don Murray, to my far left, has served as a councillor in Huron, Kinloss, I believe, for 12 years. He and his wife have 4 children, and they farm on Statters Lake Avenue, where they also operate a livestock trucking business. Perry Elliott was born and raised in Huron Township. Perry's married and farms on the 10th concession of Huron, Kinloss. He and his wife have 5 adult children. Our moderator this evening is Suzanne Irwin. She grew up on a dairy farm in the Ottawa area. She and her husband Don live in Lucknow, and they have 4 children. She retired in 2016 from a career as an elementary school teacher and administrator, and we thought what a perfect fit to moderate something like this after controlling or maintaining control in a room full of children for 31 years. So with that, I'll pass the mic over to Suzanne, and we'll get right into opening remarks.
Thank you, Keith. It's an honor for me to be acting as moderator for tonight's all-candidate meeting, and I thank the Lucknow Chamber of Commerce for inviting me. I have a few housekeeping things that I just want to make people aware of before we get started. And I'd ask, first off, if you could shut your cell phones so that we're not going to be getting rings and train whistles and all those things, songs. So if you could just shut those on to vibrate, that would be perfect. The other thing too is that if you must leave, I would ask that you do so between speakers so as to be the least disruptive to our speakers as possible. We are scheduled to end here this evening at 9 o'clock, and we're going to stick strictly to those timelines. A timer, Keith has a timer. It will notify speakers when your time is up, so you can just finish your thoughts, your sentence, when you hear that timer. And an overview of the evening, we're going to start, as Keith said, with an opportunity for the candidates to share their platforms. They'll be given 5 minutes to do that. Following that, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions of all 4 candidates, individual candidates or candidates for each position. And then at the end of our evening, they'll each be given 3 additional minutes to summarize with closing remarks. And so that being said, before this evening, we held a little draw, and Brian McEachran is going to start things off with his opening remarks. So, Brian, I don't know if you want to come here or if you want me to pass the mic. I can go there. Okay.
And thank you very much. I have a lot, my platform is a lot longer than 5 minutes, so I'll try to condense it as quickly as I can. Certainly. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. In 2009, the budget for economic development and tourism was $87,000, which seems like a lot of money, but it's not really. Over the past 9 years, though, the economic development and tourism budget has increased to this year $913,500. That to me seems a little excessive. Over the past 9 years, the total for economic development and tourism is $3.2 million. This year's operating portion of the economic development is about $200,000, and it includes putting together the Discovery Guide and the Back 40, I believe. I'm not sure if that one's part of it. I didn't see it in the list, but I assume it is. These are two outstanding magazines. My only concern is, where are they going? I live down near the lake, and I spoke to a number of people along the lakeshore, and no one has seen either one of these magazines before. I just happened to fall upon them one day when I went into the office to get some information. So these magazines need to be distributed in the spring to every single house and cottage along the lakeshore area west of Highway 21, so that the people that are cottaging there, retired there, can peruse these books, find out things of interest, and come back here to Lucknow and to Ripley and out into the Back 40 and see things that are happening that they would like to, they might be interested in. The capital expenditures of economic development and tourism, I feel personally that some of this money should not have been spent. We have gateway signage for Ripley, $65,000. We have the Ripley Downtown Plaza, $150,000. We have the Ripley Industrial Park servicing, $375,000. Ripley has had the possession of this chunk of land since 1981, and there has been no interest in any business in moving to this industrial park. Why we're spending $375,000 to put in roads and water and whatever other infrastructure is needed, I don't understand. We have a downtown improvement program of $75,000, and all of that totals to $715,000. And my personal budget can't handle the increases in my taxes. In the last 8 years, my taxes have doubled. My municipal taxes have doubled, and there's no sign of it slowing down. The total spending by the township in 2009, everything they spent was $9.4 million. This year's budget is $20.9 million, more than doubled. The only reason that our taxes only went up 1.9% this year was because council decided to take 5.1 million, almost half of all the money in the reserves. They took out 5.1 million from the reserve fund and put it into the spending. They did this also in 2014, taking out a few $1,000,000 from the reserve fund and put it into the spending. Every other year, when it's not an election year, they put money into the reserve fund. Some of you have heard that I'm against paving concession roads, and that's correct. Not because the people that live on the concession roads don't deserve to have a paved road, simply because we can't afford it. Right now, there's 402 kilometers of unpaved roads in Huron, Kinloss Township. At $80,000 per kilometer, that's the cost this year of paving a road. at the cost of $80,000 per kilometer, that would cost us $32 million to pave all of the rest of the roads in Huron, Kinloss. And that doesn't count, and that doesn't count having to dig up and repave the roads every 10 years, because they only last approximately 10 years with the heavy farm machineries traveling up and down the roads. Some of the people that say that the roads should be paved tell me that other cars use the roads. And that's correct. I use concession 10 all the time. I use it about 3 or 4 times per week to drive to Black Horse Golf Course and to drive back home again. I only use that road simply because it's more convenient. I could use County Road 6, but I don't want to be slowed down going through Ripley. I could use concession 12, but for the last 4 kilometers before Kinloss, it's a gravel road. So I always use concession 10. If it was a gravel road, I'd be driving through Ripley every time I go to play golf. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And now we'll hear from Mitch Twolan.
Good evening, and thank you to the Lucknow Chamber for hosting this event tonight. It's important that we all get out and hear what the candidates have to say that are running for election and that are going to serve you as the people of here in Kinloss for the next 4 years. So as you heard tonight, economic development is it's near and dear to my heart, quite frankly. We have a lot going on, both in the township of here in Kinloss and the county of Bruce. I am the past warden of Bruce County, and the 3 years before that, economic development, tourism, and agriculture were very high in our list of things to do to help promote the county of Bruce and the communities in between to bring companies and businesses to our area. Part of infrastructure and all the things we do, whether it's paving roads, whether it's building bridges, whether it's culverts, whether it's building water towers, it's very expensive. And for us to survive in our communities, we need this infrastructure. This infrastructure has to be in place for people to move to our communities. We need our schools, we need our water systems, we need our sewer systems, we need all of that. We need our sidewalks. We need that for our business to survive. We need that for our agricultural communities to get their products to market, and for tourists to come and visit not only our small towns, but the lake as well. So taxes have gone up, folks, and in the last 9 or 10 years, they've gone up 38% at the municipal level. So what the misconceptions are out there, assessment has also gone up over the last several years. So assessment is part of that. So for example, the county of Bruce has left the county tax rate at about 0.38% for the last 5 years. That has not gone up very much at all. The education rate has gone down. So on all your tax bills, you have the municipal rate, the county rate, and the educational rate. The educational rate has been going down for the last 6 or 7 years. The county rate has actually stayed the same, and the municipal rate has gone up. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about that. But downloading has also taken place over those few years as well. And with the new election, the new government that's been formed, obviously economics are near and dear to Mr. Ford's heart. And I think what we're going to see, and I'm just guessing, I have no more insight than anybody else here today, that we are going to see more downloading and we're going to see more user paying. So yes, taxes have gone up, and that includes the water rates, the sewer rates. That is just a given, folks. We can't get away from that. The other thing to take into perspective as well is that inflation. What's inflation done in the last 10 years? We're up about 20%. 15 to 20% in inflation. So us as a municipality, and I know these are the discussions we have around the council tables. We've been having these for 10 years. The easiest thing to do, folks, is to have a 0% tax increase. But what is that doing for your infrastructure? You need to invest in your infrastructure. So for moving forward, part of my platform is bringing natural gas to here in Kinloss. As of yesterday, and I know some of my staff might not know this, and I know council doesn't, but I was informed yesterday that in fact EPCOR has filed their leave to construct with the Ontario Energy Board, so we're getting closer, folks. That's been 7 years we've been working on that. That's a $100 million project that we've been spending 7 years to bring natural gas so people can pay lower heating bills for their homes, their businesses, and their agricultural businesses. We think that's very important for this community. So we've been working away at that. Other things that this council, and I guess maybe the new council coming up, as elected mayor, if I am the mayor, first thing that we will do is sit down as a council, and we will talk about a vision together, working with staff, and see where that vision is. I have to remind everybody here, just because you're the deputy mayor or the mayor of the municipality, you don't have a voice without that voice of those other 5 people sitting around the table. You are the voice for the decisions that have been made around that council table. So you alone do not have the ability to go in there and make decisions that are going to impact the community. It's a collaborative, and working together, I think, is very important. So all I can say is on October 22nd, I hope I can have your vote and represent you again as the mayor of Huron Kinloss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. And now I'll ask Perry Elliott to come forward.
Hello, folks. I'm just a plain old farmer from here in Kinloss, but my dad was in council and was a reeve for years. I'm not much of a speaker either, but we'll try and get through this. But I farm, I have 5 kids, I run a crane business, and I have a grass seeding business. And I'm running for deputy mayor because I have some input to the decisions made in the municipality. Spending, hiring, the DGR are some of the issues that concern me. I'm just not happy with the amount of money that's spent in township. $2 million to run the office, $3 million for a water tower. Just getting unreal. No accountability. I don't know how Ben Diefenbeek can run it for $8 million down in ACW. Talk about working with the council. Every time I'm hearing about meetings just with the CAO, the deputy mayor, and the reeve. Never hear anything about the council. We bought a bulldozer 3 or 4 years ago, and I asked my brother, well, where's the bulldozer? Well, we don't own one. But within the first month, the fellow running it destroyed it. They paid, I think it was $200,000 for it or more, and it cost $150,000 to repair it, and it's never been on site since hardly. And now we're going to sell it for $40,000. If you call this accountability, I don't know what's going on. And then we've hired this fire chief. I don't know what's going on here. He goes bankrupt. He takes 2 of our major fellas down on money. I don't know how you carry on with what's going on. So I'm put my hand in on the plate that something has to be done. So that's about all. I'm not much of a speaker. 5 minutes is too long for me. But so that's about all I got to say for right now. Thanks anyways.
Thank you, Perry. And we'll have Don Murray come forward.
Thanks, Suzanne. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, moderator, and fellow candidates. For those that don't know me, my name is Don Murray. My wife and I farm a livestock operation on Statters Lake Ave, formerly the 10th of Kinloss. We have 4 grown children and 1 grandson. We operate a livestock assembly yard and a trucking business. I was born and raised in here in Kinloss, and I chose to raise my family here. I care a great deal about this municipality. It is a beautiful place and a place where I hope people want to move to and raise their families here as well. Politics do run deep in the Murray blood, as 50 years ago my grandfather was the reeve of the former Kinloss Township and the warden of Bruce County. And I also have several family members, some elected and many as volunteers, that have worked in this municipality to make it a better place for all. In 2006, I was elected in 2006, and then I have spent those years working hard to be your representative, your voice at the table. I have sat as chair of the Lucknow Rec, Lucknow Fire Board, Medical Board, and chair of the Multi-Wind Group. And I've had the opportunity to sit on a mutual insurance company as a board member and chair, as well as the Bruce County Cattlemen, Ontario Feeder Finance, and South Bruce Feeder Finance. During my time on council, we have improved our community by striving to do the best and make the best decisions for all residents. The needs of the township change from year to year. Each year brings new challenges to the table, and as elected officials, it is our job to ensure the best for all residents. If elected, I promise to continue to be financially responsible to our ratepayers. I believe that with the new provincial government and the uncertainty of what funding might come down from that government, you, the ratepayers, need an experienced voice and a voice of reason at the table. If elected, I promise to do that. While being on council, I have seen many new improved things to our community. I have seen the building of the Henderson Hall at the Lucknow Sports Complex. With the amalgamation of Lucknow and Ripley minor hockey this year, and hopefully many years to come, our local arenas will be filled to capacity to watch our future generations. In a warm viewing room for each facility, more spectators may join in the fun. Our beautiful lakeshore is a little piece of here in Kinloss paradise. We do beach cleaning when needed. Sometimes Mother Nature works with us, and sometimes it hinders this process. In order for our communities to grow and exist, our businesses need to prosper, and we must promote economic development. We need to work hard to bring new businesses, create jobs, and we know that with growth will come more families, and more families mean more children to fill our local schools. We cannot afford to lose one of our local schools. In my time on council, we have seen a new fire hall built here in Lucknow, and both the federal and the provincial government set regulations that we must follow. So as council, we must work to ensure that both our fire departments are properly trained and ensure that the equipment is up to date for our men and women to use. These people are our first responders. If elected, I will continue to support doctor recruitment. I believe it is important for all our residents to have the support they need when they need it. Our municipal infrastructure is a huge responsibility. We must keep up to date with all regulations and have safe drinking water for all on municipal water. Our roads, if elected, I would like to see the completion of more of our concession roads being paved. In the long run, it is cheaper to maintain a paved road than a gravel road, and it is better for the environment. I would like to see the process of natural gas started in the next term, and I would like to see high-speed internet brought to those residents and businesses who don't already have it. The DGR, right now, the existing council is in the learning stage of the process. I encourage all ratepayers to get themselves involved and educated. Ask questions, attend meetings so that you can make an informed decision. In closing, I wish to thank the Lucknow Chamber of Commerce for hosting this meeting, and I wish to thank all the ratepayers that come out tonight to listen and get informed. I encourage everyone on October 26th to vote. I am asking for your vote to allow me to continue to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. So now comes the part of our evening where you get to ask questions of these folks, and just how we'll work that I will explain. So you'll notice that there is a mic on each corner here. You are asked, if you have a question, to step to one of those mics. Before asking your question, we would ask that you state your name and the area you are representing. Your question will be limited to 30 seconds. So before you get to the mic, know what you're going to ask. And the question, if you're directing it to one person or all four, or, you know, mayor candidates or deputy mayor candidates, you need to state that. All candidates will respond unless you do state that it's going to a particular person, and they will have 1 minute to answer your question. Keith's going to be busy doing all this timing. If you've asked a question and you've heard the responses, you are going to be allowed to ask a follow-up question. So if something was set up here and you still have a burning question, you're allowed to have 30 more seconds to ask for something to be clarified. And as I said in the beginning, we are sticking to our timelines. So unless we happen to finish before 8:45 at 8:45, I will stop questions, and that will give us 15 minutes to let the candidates have their closing remarks. So, that being said, I open the floor up to questions. And I'm just going to pass the mic. Okay?
Do you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, Lori Hamilton. I don't know what you mean by what area I represent.
Well, do you live in Lucknow? Do you live in Ripley?
I live on the lakeshore.
Thank you.
Okay. This question's for Mitch. Can you hear me? Okay. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization has said that it's up to council to decide if Huron Kinloss is a willing host for the high-level nuclear waste. Has council had any discussion at all as to how and when it will be decided if we are a willing host?
So a good question. That's definitely been brought up a few times during the campaigning period. So council does not make that decision. That decision is made by the public. And how we arrive at that decision is we're still going through the process. And I know this was stated at the Beach Association meetings. Unfortunately, I missed the Bruce Beach Association meeting. But I did mention that at the Point Clark Beach Association meeting. Council does not make that decision. And that has been stated very clearly since 2012, since the CLC meetings started. And the CLC meetings are the Community Liaison Committee that I am the chair of, that Wilfred Gamble's the deputy chair, and then we have 5 members from the public. So to answer your question, Lloyd, we're not there yet. We're still in the learning process. So again, that decision will be made by the public, and I know Don said earlier that for the public to get out to our meetings and have some discussions.
So you have no idea when will there be a referendum, or?
So that's
You have
another
no
question.
idea.
So the APM, which means adaptive phase management, that means it's a moving, it's fluid. So at some point, that could be something that the CLC makes a recommendation to council after hearing some more presentations from not only NWMO, but any guest speakers. So again, it's fluid at this point, so I can't sit here and say it's going to be next year. And to have a referendum right now, like we're not even that far down in the process right now. So to have a referendum, we've been getting 5, 6, 7, 8 people out to some of our meetings. So for us right at this point, we don't have enough people engaged. We want more people engaged.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question.
This is a less important question.
Could you state your name and your area, please?
Betty MacArthur, 488 Campbell Street. And for some reason, I am not in Lucknow. I'm considered the 488 Campbell, that's next to the bowling alley. And I wonder why, when the flowers are putting up, they go right to the bridge. My pole doesn't, or I don't get any flowers out the front. And I just wonder the difference between the rest of the town and the bowling alley and 488 Campbell Street, which was Bob Lyon's old house.
And are you directing that to anyone, or can someone answer for us?
I would just like someone to answer.
I'll give it a try. I believe that most of our small towns, like Lucknow and Ripley, we decorate the main street. We do put flowers down on the bridge by 9 Waves and Protecta, but most of it is just the main corridor of the main street. So if we've left you out, I feel sorry for that,
I feel
but
very left out.
I think it's just the main street from Havelock down to the Lucknow Arena is where we put flowers. Sorry.
Can you reconsider?
You, the best thing to do would be send a proposal to council, because you have to remember we're just one voice. But if you would like to come to council some night as a delegation and ask for flowers to be put in front of your house, we would consider it.
And other things, snow plowing. Snow plowing is not the same. It ends on the corner there, and then it's different.
You get snow plowed by 2 snow plows, I believe. Actually, the county goes by your place plus the township plow, because you do live on a county road. So the county does plow that road, and you might get extra snow because our snow plow comes around the corner and has to dump it somewhere. So, and I did run a snow plow
Yep,
in
that
Lucknow years
happens.
ago. So you do get 2 snow plows going by your place. One's the township and one is the county. So, but if you would like to come and ask about flowers to council, bring a delegation and we'd be happy to hear you.
A delegation. Well, there's only the bowling alley and myself. That's not going to be a big delegation.
Okay.
I was thinking about the Lucknow Horticultural Society. Maybe you could join them and have some say with that too. Can we move on to our next question?
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Doug Eady, grew up in the Holyrood area, farmed in this area most of my farming career, now retired, living in Kincardine with my wife Ann. She warned me when I came here tonight, she said, don't stir up anything too much. And I said, no. I said, you're not on council anymore in here in Kinloss. So I said, it's my chance. Anyway, my question is to all of the candidates, what would you do to cut engineering costs? And I'll give you an example. Where there's an old bridge on a side road, and I think they'll know the one I might be referring to, it wasn't just recently completed. What would you do to cut engineering costs when they recommend a bridge, when I know the ones I've seen a culvert would do, and at the most 2 culverts, put in very quickly by local contractors? So that's what I want to know. What would you do?
Okay, we'll start over here then with Brian, and we'll just work our way down.
Jim, help me out here. You're an engineer, aren't you? Okay, sorry. That's what I was thinking too. Okay. I'm sorry, but I know there are rules and regulations pertaining to any type of infrastructure building, especially bridges. I can't imagine that there would be anything I can do to reduce the engineering cost of a bridge.
Good question. This is something we talk about a lot, not only at the township, but at the county level. I think, Doug, where things have gone off the rail is with our environmental assessments. And to give you an example, we did a project for the county of Bruce. It was called the Nags Bridge. We physically had to bring in a scuba diver to the tune of $37,000 to move endangered mussels from one side of the bridge to the other. That was part of the environmental assessment. We had no control over that, or we were not getting our permit. And some of the other battles we face is with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Saugeen Valley, Maitland Valley. So I know over in Purple Grove a few years ago, we simply wanted to put in a large culvert, and we were fought tooth and nail by Saugeen Valley saying we had to put in a certain size structure. There was a battle we ended up winning and saving quite a bit of money, but Saugeen Valley, we've definitely had some issues. We just went through the comprehensive zoning bylaw, and that was quite a process for 15 months to say the least. But I'm hoping, Doug, under the new Ford government, we have had a couple meetings in Toronto that some of this red tape and bureaucracy will be taken away. I could have kept going on a little bit longer there.
Thanks for following the rules.
Well, my answer is maybe we just get rid of BM Ross and get a high hoe and dig it in. And I have one myself that I could do it with. There's no reason that it has to be a bridge on that road, and I know the one you're talking about, because if I get elected, it will be put in. And that's the way I feel about it. And Saugeen Valley and Maitland, if we quit paying them some money, maybe something would get done.
I think, Doug, this is one time I'm going to stick up for the engineers. I don't think our bridges and everything is all an engineer problem. I think I have to agree with Mitch, and we went through this with the Purple Grove Side Road a few years ago. It's not all about the engineers, it's about our conservation authorities and oceans and fisheries. I do believe we should have been able to put a culvert in there, but you have to remember we started out at 500,000 and ended up cutting that in half by going through the process with BM Ross saying we wanted everything from closing that road to putting a culvert in. And at that time, to put 2 culverts in was going to cost the same to do what we've done now. So it's not all the engineers' cost all the time. Sometimes it is, but a lot of it is the regulations we have to work with. And I do think we need to, at some time, take a good run at the conservation authorities and see where we come up with there.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if you go east, one concession over, you come to the boundary, and it's a big culvert there, and that was put in well before. I don't know how old that. Maybe one of you can tell. Maybe Donnie could tell me how old that is. And I mean this. I'm addressing this to everyone.
Yeah, and I don't know how old that culvert is, Doug, and we did try and do that. But it was Ocean Fisheries and Conservation Authority that stopped us at that because of the flow through it. And we wanted to even have the water come over the road once in a while if it had to, and they wouldn't allow us to do that. So it wasn't just the engineer company at that time, it was to do with the conservation and stuff. So I do agree with you, there's a big culvert on the boundary, and that's what should be at Purple Grove, but we just couldn't get it done.
And could we skip over to Mitch now? I just want to ask, clarify some clarification. You were talking about efficiencies, Mitch, with the new government. You're going to get more cuts. They've already been happening, and that's been part of the downloading on the municipalities. And I feel a lot of empathy for people and staff that have to deal in municipalities now. It used to be 80% grants for bridges and road construction. Now, I don't know.
Now we get $235,000 from the federal government in gas tax revenue, and that's what we put into reserves for bridges. That's all we get now.
Yeah, I know.
And to build a new bridge is about 30,000 a meter.
Yeah. And I know now the current Saugeen Valley board has really come down hard on the stuff that used to go on with Saugeen Valley. Some good, some bad. But the bottom line is, this is roads, bridges are one of the biggest costs, if not the biggest cost in a municipality. And I really think, and I'm not slamming all engineering. Somewhere in all this you need some good engineering, but you do not need them to, and they get 20% roughly on a job. They would far sooner have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 spent. The fifth, the Kincardine, where you go down that deep V when you're going east off 21 up to where the dump is, they recommended, and by they was an engineering firm, I'm not going to name the firm, $3.5 million. And if you go through there, anybody goes through there, it's well worth looking down. Get out of your vehicle and get down in and look at the little narrow runway of water. And once again, and what they wanted to do though was flatten the road out. Yeah, you could flatten it out some, but they wanted to, make an astronomical project out of it. And anyways, I'll shut it off by saying 20%, figured out 20% of $3.5 million.
Jim's over there biting his tongue, I'm sure he is.
Thank you. Okay, next question.
Okay, my name's Albert Hayes. and I'm on 578 Engle Street in Lucknow. And the question that I have is for Brian and for Perry. In the town of Lucknow here, the river runs through, and the town owns the property where a number of trees that have fallen in the river, and there's a bunch of dead ones still there on a number of streets that haven't got a road going through. So my question, and also when I'm here, the second question that I have is about the property standards in Lucknow and also out throughout the community. So my question is that what would you do if you get on council to correct these problems?
Exactly what was the problem with the trees?
They're dead.
Right.
They're dead and they're falling into the river and causing blockage.
Whose property are they on?
They're on the town's property.
If I were on council, then I would speak to our Parks and Rec person and get them to look at the situation, get Matt Fair out there to look at the situation, and if they are town's trees and they're falling into the river, then I would have the town remove them. Was that it?
If we're having trouble with trees, we just have to phone Bruce Crane and we could get them out of the river pretty quick. And I don't know about the other, what the other part of the question was.
Okay, the other part of the question is about property standards. And basically what I'm bringing up is vehicles, a number of vehicles on properties. And they've been there for a number of years. And the reason I'm asking you two new fellas, the other ones don't seem to do anything about it, so I'm trying to get what you would do if you got on council.
Well, my daughter was the bylaw officer for a little while. Now, we were having trouble with a fellow in Ripley, and we're still having a little trouble with him. But there should be something we can do with the bylaw officer to help you out with the cars, too many cars or whatever, making a problem.
Mitch or Dawn, do you want to respond to that? I'll give you that opportunity. No? Okay. We'll give the audience a few minutes to ponder some more questions. Okay.
I just forgot the list. No, I guess it might be to Mitch and to Brian.
Can we ask you to state your name, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I took for granted, right? Morton Jacobson and I own 457 Campbell Street together with my wife. No, I just wondered when I heard in the some of the numbers from the budget, I haven't looked in the budget, but that there was $300,000 going to an industrial park in Ripley to development that. I kind of, wow, because we stood as a chamber some years ago and asked about residential development and have also asked about where's industrial development going to be. And we were told that council is not developers. So things changed?
Actually, no, they haven't, Mort. And Brian alluded this to the $375,000 that was put into reserves to service the Ripley Industrial Park. The industrial park is the only piece of industrial land that the township has. So obviously, with everything that was going on with the Bruce refurb, the County of Bruce was looking for all communities to bring forward parcels of land that could be developed to help promote these businesses coming into Bruce County. Since we made that announcement with the Bruce Power, which I was signatory to, about bringing in supply chain businesses into Bruce County, we've had 34 businesses move in. And so what we did is we have $375,000 out of our water and sewer reserve that will get paid back to that reserve after those chunks of land get sold. I will tell you, we've already lost out on one developer because of the archaeological study that we've had to do over there. So we're now into a stage 4 archaeological study that's costs us around $60,000 to $70,000 right now. They found 200 pieces of clothing dating back circa 1835. So that's holding us up. Other than that, we would have had water and sewer out to that business park at no cost to the taxpayers, because that would have been recouped by selling off the parcels of land.
Well, I would like to first see the interest from some business in settling in that area before I would put 375,000 or 70,000, whichever, into the land itself. And as you say, we're not in the development business. Any developer normally has to provide all the infrastructure for whatever project they're doing, whether it's housing or whether it's a business of some form. So I still don't see the value to the township. Yes, we'll get it back if lots are sold, but if they're not sold, then it's just going to sit there and do nothing for another 10, 20, 30 years.
I appreciate that, and I totally understand that municipalities probably not developers, but sometimes it's also depending on if it's what's it called, the horses in front or whatever. We're talking about deep geological, the whole thing that's coming up maybe. We want to attract businesses. We want to attract. We don't want our schools to close. So then someone has to step up and do it. And we all know in small communities like this here, we don't have the big developers coming up and say, we're going to develop this here because we believe in it, right? So I think it's part of the municipality and council to believe in that if we build it, they'll come. And I think that's what we're missing a little bit here. You guys on council, you've done a great job on it, but we're not there. And I think we have to turn around like 34 businesses, Mitch, but we're there here in Kinloss. They're in Bruce County, right? So if we get all these things going, we need to have a place in all our small towns here in Kinloss where you can build a house and not beside an old car that hasn't been moved.
Yeah, and that's been our philosophy, and that's, well, not only were we required in Ripley for the elevated water tower, which was paid by out of the water reserves. So I've been hearing that out in the streets too, that the taxpayers have been paying and funding that water tower. That is not correct. That is coming out of our water reserves. We have a capital budget that we passed in 2016, basically projecting out the next 6 years to have our water infrastructure in place. That water tower is paid with, folks, by cash, because we've been managing, our staff have been managing those dollars for that water tower. With it, there's 160 some lots in Ripley ready for development, for those developers to come in. So Ripley's ready. Lucknow, next up is the water tower in Lucknow. It's just a matter of when the Ministry of Environment tells us you have to replace that tower. We know it's coming one day sooner than the next. We have an application going in, I believe, at the end of September for a grant for $2.4 million to help build the Lucknow water tower. If not, we will have to go alone and build it. We have $1.1 million in reserves to get that water tower up there. That helps out in development in Lucknow as well. You see the Tim Hortons that's going there. The municipality put a lot of money into infrastructure, as did the County of Bruce, to help develop that portion and keep water away. So a lot of money's been spent, but I think it's money well spent.
There seems to be a misconception. The money in the reserve fund came from the taxpayers of Huron Kinloss. It wasn't, it didn't fall from the sky. And even if it was given to us by the Ontario government, it still comes from the taxpayers. It's not money that was found.
It comes from the water users. Water users only.
Mort, just on the development land at Ripley, I'm a big believer we're not in the development business, but if we didn't start something, nothing's going to come. We've already lost out on one because we were not ready, had water and sewer to the property line to develop it. So I think for the best interests of our whole municipality and to bring jobs to the area, we had to spend that money to get water out there to the property line and sewers for development to come there. And the water tower, The conception is wrong. It is the water users that pay, not the taxpayers living out in the rural property. It's all in reserves out of the rates that we charge for water in our small town.
Good evening. My name is Linda Thacker. I live in Huron, Kinloss. I love the lake, I love Ripley, I love Lucknow, and I love our farm. I'm only asking a question because I think a few more questions should be asked tonight. Recently, we had a drainage clean out along our farm and the Royal Oak Drain, and Mr. Twolan and the council all agreed. I would just wonder if any council members ever make the effort to really go out after they've spent $1 million of taxpayers' money and $25,000 of my money to clean out the drain, if anyone ever takes the time to really go out and have a look and see if it's working, if it was worth the effort. We have a little bit of trouble. I know on our farm alone, we've already had some erosion that we never had before. So just a question, if elected, do you ever intend to leave the office and go out and really see what some of the work is being done in the township of Huron Kinloss?
Okay, we'll start here this time.
I know the drain you're talking about, and I wasn't agreeing with it at all because I have a hydro seeding business, and I don't know why you need to put grass on the side of a bank all the way up it.
Especially when 98% of the people said we did not want it cleaned out at that
Didn't want
time,
it, yeah.
but we went ahead and did it anyway.
And we did it anyways. I don't know what's going on, but they're spending a lot of money on something that wasn't needed.
I'll agree, Linda. We did have 98% of the people show up with a petition at council in that drain, and that night there wasn't one person that stood up and actually spoke against it. It kind of made me heartbroken because I was ready to take your side and it comes to council and nobody stood up and said, stop this now. And I have went out and walked part of that drain to see how it is working and stuff. I haven't walked it all, but I have been there to walk part of it. So I'm a little heartbroken on some people's comments about the drain because we did have a petition and nobody spoke against it. And we had a 2-hour meeting that night with people that said, well, it's going to be a 50 or 100-year fix. And it did go through the whole process of the municipal drain. And we've just been through this again at the township with a couple municipal drains where if we didn't have a municipal drain act, we would have people caught with land that couldn't get drained and make productive. Because we've got one right now that is being tied up where they don't want a farmer to have a legal outlet. And that's how come we need a municipal drain. And my only comment about municipal drains, it's not our money that we're spending. They have got completely out of whack. But the cost of doing any business today has got out of whack. And I don't know where we can get an end to it. It's like a water tower that a couple of years ago in Ripley was 1.5 million and now it's 3.5 million. So that's how costs have got out of control on us. And I just don't know how to fix the problem, but it was the Municipal Drain Act is a petition drain, and people did petition it, and everybody did have the right, and it did go to the tribunal and the referee before it went ahead for construction.
Donnie said it all, but all I can add to that is I don't have an office at the township office.
I don't have an office either.
I'm
However,
sorry,
I'm retired.
I didn't know I mentioned an office.
I know. I'm retired, and I have all the time in the world. And right now, for example, someone from Paradise Lake Road called me up and wondered about paving the concession road from Highway 86 to their entrance to their properties. There's 22 homes in that area around Paradise Lake. So I went out there and I spoke to a number of the people on Paradise Lake. Some of them want the road paved from 86 out to their road, and some of them don't. So once again, I would be happy to come and see any project that has been done or is going to be done or is considering being done.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keith Vanderhook. I live out in Huron, Kinloss here. I farm and I have a trucking business also. I'd like to ask everybody up there, staffing. how many staff members do we have? Because it seems to be growing more and more all the time over in that office in Ripley. Every time somebody goes off on a medical leave, maternity leave or something like that, somebody replaces them for the 9, 10 months, whatever they are, but they don't leave. Why? We have so many people. If you go to ACW, there's not a quarter of the people over there. And they run as big a township as we do.
So we have 16 staff in the municipal building, and then obviously we have our roads crew, Keith, which you're aware of, and then we have parks and recreation. So 2 of our staff right now are being funded by the NWMO for the project that we're undertaking right now. So those wages, they are township employees, but those wages are being covered by the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. So in essence, we have 14 people on staff in Ripley. I don't know if there's anybody from ACW here or not, but I don't want to throw you under the bus, but so ACW, here in Kinloss, we have, I think it's 1,000 more homes than ACW. We have approximately 2,000 more people living in here in Kinloss than ACW. We have, to fund what we have going on operational wise in here in Kinloss compared to ACW, because I know that's been, we've been compared to that. We have 2 arenas, 2 libraries, 2 medical clinics. We have, and actually I went through all those numbers, but I'll pass this on to Brian.
Thank you. ACW has 9 people in their office, just for your information. I understood that our office had 20, but I'll accept Mitch's number. And you're right, they have a larger area to look after, and that's why they have more gravel roads than we do, because they only pave the roads that go to a town or go someplace specific. The rest of the roads are all graveled, and their costs are way down compared to ourselves, and they have a smaller staff.
I'm not sure how many people work for the township, but I know there's a lot there, Keith. What am I going to say now? Lost my thought.
Well, I guess, Keith, I'll echo some of Mitch's comments. There is a difference in the number of people. There is a difference in how we run our business. There is a difference in what county we're in, too. We do have 2 fire halls. We have 2 arenas. We have 2 libraries. We have double everything. I think we have a good staff, and I think we have a staff that does a good job. We have staff working daily on getting us grants and doing everything that possible. I think we've been very fortunate to have the staff we have and not have a big turnover. So I'm going to stick up for our staff and say I think we're doing the right thing. ACW's got 9 and we have 14 that are being paid. 2,000 more people. Are we really out of line? And we want to talk about the paved roads going into towns and stuff. I think our residents that live on gravel roads deserve to be able to drive their new cars down a paved road just as much as anybody else. And that's why I'm pushing the paved roads. So.
I do agree with you on that one, Donnie. I really like the paved roads. I think, Brian, on your little note that you sent out on the flyer, when you said the roads don't go anywhere when they're gravel, the roads all lead down to your place. Remember that. That's one thing I will say to you. Those roads all go down there.
Absolutely, everyone does deserve a paved road. However, the taxes to pave those roads would be horrendous. As I said, it would be $32 million to pave the rest of the gravel roads in Huron, Kinloss. I have a question. Don, is your driveway paved? No. And there's a reason his driveway's not paved. I assume it's because it's far too expensive to pave 200 meters up to his farmhouse. And I don't blame him. If I lived If I lived 200 meters from a road, I wouldn't pave it either. Why don't we take water to every single house in Huron, Kinloss? Why doesn't Don Morton's farm get town water that is guaranteed not to have E. coli or some other problem in it? Because it's far too expensive. Some things, well, that may be. Maybe you don't want it. I can understand that too. But it's far too expensive. That's why we don't have water going everywhere. That's why we can't afford to have paved roads going everywhere.
Just a little bit of a rebuttal, Brian. When I talk about paving concession roads, I mean concession roads, not side roads. Your number of 420 kilometers, we don't have very many kilometers of actual concession roads left to be paved. We have nothing left in the former Huron Township, and we have a few in Kinloss. We only have one in Kinloss east of County Road 1 and about 3 west of County Road 1, or 3.5 actually. There's 2 of them paved part way down. And I'm only talking concession roads, not every little side road. So.
Next question.
Lori Hamilton again. Under the economic, this is for Mitch and Don. Under the economic development and tourism, there's 2 items. The Ripley Gateway signage for $65,000 and the Ripley Downtown Plaza for $150,000. Can you say exactly how these expenditures have boosted the economic development in Huron, Kinloss?
First off, we received a grant from Main Street, I think it was a federal grant of $112,000, if I do recall, to do the plaza. And the plaza is beside the Ripley Fire Hall. There's a blank parking lot in there that quite frankly looks quite ugly. So we received some money to do that. So that's not taxpayers' money.
So 112,000 of the 150,000 was...
Staff help me, is that correct? Like I think it's around that. I'm sorry I don't have the budget with me.
So it was $38,000 of taxpayers?
Yeah, approximately. And the gateway signs, same thing, I think. And again, I'm going off my head. I can't recall, but we can get you those numbers. The gateway signs in the Ripley, I think, were $25,000 out of taxpayers' money. And
can you say how they've boosted economic development in Huron, Kinloss?
well, the gateway signs just went up this week, and the plaza has not been done yet.
But do you think it will boost economic development in Huron, Kinloss?
Without a doubt. And I don't know if you've been
or
to...
just Ripley?
No, here in Kinloss. And we look at our whole municipality. If something's good for one community, how is it not good for everybody? And that's the way we think. The Win This Space program brought a brand new restaurant to downtown Ripley. I don't know the last time you've been in Ripley, but the street is full. And I haven't seen it that busy in many, many years. So I encourage you to take a drive to Ripley and have lunch at the new restaurant and just see what's happening in the village of Ripley.
Okay.
Donnie?
I'd like to talk to that about that new restaurant. My sister-in-law owned the restaurant in Ripley for years and had to close it because she couldn't find help as a waitressing. And now they started this new one. They give her $25,000 to start this thing. And they're having trouble finding help now. So I don't know how this is going to work.
We didn't give them $25,000. There was a committee put lots of money together. I think the township portion to try and get business to come was $2,500 possibly. And staff done a wonderful job, I believe, in finding other people to support to get a business in, and now we're running another Win This Space, and it's for either town, Lucknow or Ripley. So, the total package is that. It didn't come from the township.
Okay, next question.
Connie Jefferson. I'm one of the local business people here in town. I have a question in regard to, for all candidates, on how you're going to help improve the security of this town. helping get rid of the drugs and creative people that bring stuff in or do damage to our buildings or steal things out of our backyards or out of our sheds or things like that. Do you have any plans to help improve that at all with the local authorities or help any of the business owners with what they can do?
That's a very difficult question. Every city, every town has the same problem. There's no difference between Lucknow or Toronto or Kincardine or Owen Sound. There's always problems with crime and people that will commit the crimes. Neighborhood watches help, and especially if people can be a little more vigilant about it. Other than that, I don't see how else I could help.
So here in Kinloss now has a police services board, which I'm the chair of, and we have one community member, and we're waiting for the new government to appoint the third person. We had that meeting, town hall meeting here in Lucknow, I'm going to say about a year ago, I think it was.
Yeah, I was
that
there.
we actually, the OPP were very cooperative in coming out and having a wholesome discussion about crime and drugs in our community. And Brian's right, this is going on in every community, not only in Bruce County, but all over the place. The OPP, with help from some of the local mayors, we did a campaign called Pocket Your Keys, because a lot of crime was happening when people were leaving keys in their vehicles, because that was a gateway for these folks to steal a vehicle to get to their drugs or to just pawn the vehicle off for whatever they could get or whatever. So that program's really working well. I also sit in the Grey Bruce Health Unit. I'm the vice chair. Opioid crisis and crystal meth are two of the big items, obviously, in our communities. It's sad that our people have gotten to that point, but that's where we're at, and all we can do is keep being vigilant, and hopefully people will help us out when they see something going on.
I don't know how we're going to do it, because now we got new legislation coming in for more drugs to be available. So we've got policing. I don't know what else we can do yet. No answer for you yet.
I guess I'm kind of the same. I look at it, we spend 1.3 million, I think, on a policing budget now in the municipality of here in Kinloss. I'm not sure how much more we can afford to spend. And the old saying is, every time you want a policeman, he's never there, and when you don't, he's always there. So I wish I had a crystal ball that I could turn it and tell you the right answer, but
Well,
I'm wondering if maybe the legalization of some of this stuff might actually make it better. I'm not sure if it might cut down some of the crime rate if it's legal, and I'm a little concerned today when the new announcement, now that they've cut the minimum wage back to $14, they froze it. I was hoping maybe a little more money would give people more money in their pockets, and maybe the crime rate wouldn't be as bad. So I'm not sure what's going to happen moving forward here. But I don't have an answer for you how to make it any better for you.
All right.
Next question.
It's me again. I'm just going to rewind back a little bit about the cost of making infrastructure that we talked about, bridges, whatever, and you're finding a lot of roadblocks with, for example, the conservation authorities. And I think it was Perry or someone said about that, well, is it correct that the municipality has to pay a certain amount into the conservation authority? And is the conservation authority not put together of all the municipalities in that area? So if you pulled the plug, there wasn't any funding for them. So what I'm finding a little bit is it not also maybe if the municipality or the council pushed back and said enough is enough, we can't swallow all these costs because you want us to move frogs from the one side to the other, whatever. I guess it's to all of you or to the existing and new ones, are you going to say stand up to them instead of just bow and say, well, it's from federal government or from provincial, and just say, screw you guys, we're going to do it this way?
Oh, we want to, Mort. Don't ever kid yourself. I think I mentioned earlier the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The Conservation Authority, after all that work we did, we're actually going to appeal our bylaw. After all the work we did. We sent a very strong letter to the Conservation Authority saying the fight is on if you want to take us on in this one, because we've had enough, quite frankly. Yes, I think we pay $149,000 a year to two conservation authorities. And it's done by a per capita basis. There's some kind of formula, I just forget what it is. And yes, the people sitting around the table are mayors or deputy mayors or councillors, without a doubt. They have revamped their whole policy and procedures because of these issues that are going on, just not in our community, but every community in Bruce, Grey, Wellington, whatever that that Conservation Authority represents. So we have so many frustrations. We get developers calling us all the time. We have just angry citizens all the time talking about the Conservation Authority, and it's frustrating. And hopefully we're on a better path, Mark.
Not much I can add to that. We've been very frustrated now at the lakeshore as well with the with Saugeen Valley, because they're dealing with most of our area. The Maitland one only deals with up here, that's traveling south more than west. And I agree that they've got too much say in too many things. I built a house and part of my land was sloped at the back, and the Conservation Authority I had to get a permit from them as well as from the township. And the lady from the Conservation Authority, it was $700. She came out, she took her little trundle wheel and looked at where my stakes were, where the house was going to go, and that was it. Whereas Matt Farrell had to come out many times to check on each level of building construction and so on, and it was only $750. So why was I paying $700 for a person to come out for 15 minutes where Matt spent hours at my place?
Mort, I agree, and I've actually said this the last few years at budget. I think our numbers are maybe $170,000 between the two conservation authorities. I agree something needs to be done. One of my biggest things isn't always the conservation, but they want to be involved in every piece of planning we do too, and it ties up our developers, it ties up people wanting to build a house that are coming here to make their life better in our beautiful municipality. So I think we need to, at budget time, really look at what's going to happen with the conservation authorities.
I'm going to do a real U-turn this time. Going to talk about the Mennonite community, mainly, primarily Kinloss Township. Compared to what Wellington County did, the Mennonite community here uses the small, narrow wheels on their buggies. I don't know how many people have seen them up close, and they have a little steel band around them. When they're going down a paved concession road, and Donnie likely and Perry, the guys that are on a concession road, well, Perry won't see it because you don't have too many down your way. But anyways, the wheel that runs along the edge of the pavement, quite often one wheel will be on the shoulder of the road and the other wheel will be on the edge. They try it, especially to see large farm implements coming, etc., or a big truck, they're over. And what happens in the summertime when it's hot and humid in that pavement? On that edge of that pavement where it's a bit thinner, it grooves it. Then in the wintertime, late fall into the winter, that groove collects water, and then you know what ice does? Expands and then contracts, expands, contracts, then you get splitting. So if you go down and take a little walk along some of those concession roads that have been paved for a while, you'll see the cracks and the crumbling of the... in Wellington County, they simply went to the leaders of the churches, and that's where the decisions are made with them, and asked, will you please go to rubber-tired vehicles when you're running on paved roads. And it's no great expense to them. And a lot of things with them are, they don't like change. That's why they live the way they do. They add to our tax base. They've created some businesses that maybe the rest of us could learn a little bit from. But that is one, so what I would like to do is ask everybody, what would you be in favor of going to them and asking them to switch to that? And I know they would, but they have to be asked in a strong way.
Thank you.
I guess we could go and ask them. I do a lot of work with them when I was in the crane business. I know a lot of the senior guys around there, so we could ask them. I know they're not going to come and help me vote or win this election because they don't vote. So we just have to ask them the other question, I guess.
And we do have the two groups of them, Doug, bearded and non-bearded. We actually have the non-bearded have now put a rubber band on their buggy tires, the little narrow ones, and are pulling rubber-tired wagons. The non-bearded are still all steel wheels. Our biggest concern lately has been the tractors on the road, and we've had to go to their elders and tell them to get them off the road, or we are going to start fining them, because they do have steel wheels with spuds on them that they are driving on our paved roads. So we have asked them, and most times I think they are being considerate and following what we've asked them, because we said we would pass a bylaw if we had to keep the steel tires off the road.
Thank you. I don't like the term our roads. They're their roads as well as our roads. However, I'm sure if you ask any person at Lavis Construction, they will tell you that the heavy farm machinery and the trucks that carry the grain, etc., they do far more damage to the roads in the long run than the little metal wheels. Okay. Last summer, the township paved Statters Lake Road, Concession 10, whatever you want to call it, from the top of the hill all the way out past Bruce County Road 1, 8 kilometers, $640,000. If you count the number of Mennonite farms on that road, you count the number of non-Mennonite farms on that road, it's over 60% are Mennonite and less than 40% are non-Mennonite. I've went and spoke to 3 Mennonite farmers, and they all say they would far prefer the road was a gravel road, because then there would be less traffic and the traffic would be going slower.
Next question.
William Steele, and I noticed that conservation came up. My congratulations to the chap behind the blue bottle. I'm sorry. The others.
I just wonder if you could just step
you
to the
hear?
mic closer.
Can
We
you hear
can't
me?
hear you.
Closer? How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
The word conservation came up a while ago, and my congratulations to the chap behind the blue bottle. Yes, that's conservation. The other ones take 125 years to break down, gentlemen. Anyway, my question, we have signs up in the village. It says source water protection area. You seen them? Yes. And I'd just like to know the meaning of them and what it curtails to the landowners involved. Thank you.
Are you asking that of?
I'm asking that as a question, whoever wants to take it.
I'm the municipal representative for Port Elgin, Saugeen Shores, Kincardine, and here in Kinloss on the Source Water Protection Committee. I've been on it since 2007. What those signs mean, wherever you have a municipal well, you have a wellhead protection area. So not much can happen in that wellhead protection area. So it's more of a warning for people to know and understand what the wellhead protection area is. So there's, they call it WAPA, WAPA A, WAPA B, WAPA C, and WAPA D. And basically what it is the time of travel it takes water, if it gets down into an aquifer or whatever, to get to that well. So it's more of a campaign on letting people know what these signs are, and they're all over Ontario right now, folks. So That's a good question, though, and I'm glad somebody brought that one up.
I thank you for the question. I've seen those signs the last couple of years, all, as he says, all over Ontario, and I have no idea what they mean either. Obviously, we're supposed to protect the water. Does that mean that if I'm not in the wellhead protection area, I can dump out gasoline on my lawn because I'm not in that area, but I can't do it if I'm in that area? I don't know what it means. No idea.
I think Mitch explained it pretty good, but if anybody wants to, you could likely find it on the township website under the source water protection and look up the meaning, and it would, sometime down the road, I'm a little concerned it will regulate what people can do in that area, like our small town of Whitechurch. The farmers cannot spread manure close to the municipal well. We won't be allowed to use chemical fertilizer and pesticides and so on. So that's where the meaning is going to come from. Hopefully everybody else uses common sense when they're dumping stuff out and not just dumping it on their lawns.
Next question.
I'm Keith again. Landfill. Huron Kinloss landfill up there. I live on Concession 6 East. At this end here is Karashi Avenue. We have so many trucks go by our place, heading to our landfill site. I'm not saying they're all coming from Lucknow, because a couple lost the bags out in front of our place last weekend. They happen to be coming from Teeswater. Do we check cards or anything like that at our landfill anymore? Or actually, I followed a truck out of Kincardine today, loaded with garbage out of renovation. Where'd it go? Followed it right to the landfill. Is anybody checking on this stuff, or can we check on this stuff?
We're trying to police it, Keith. We have talked the last couple months about having to go back to a card system. You do have to remember, we do have residents with a Teeswater address living in our municipality too.
Yes.
So we could have people with a Teeswater address bringing garbage to one of our landfills, yes, but they are part of our municipality. So yes, the Kincardine one, I know it's always been a shot in the dark. That's why we try and keep our tipping fees the same, so that we're not cheaper than one of the other municipalities. But we have talked about having to bring a card system back just because of people coming from other places. So.
Well, I know the tipping fees aren't the same, because I know in Kincardine it's $200 a ton. Ripley's $100 a ton, and I know the fellow you're talking about that's doing the tipping. So it isn't being looked after at all, and the keys are being given out that it's open for some people 7 days a week, and other contractors have only got 3 days. So there's something wrong going on at the dump.
Years ago, when I was building my cottage, we had little blue and white cards that said we were from Huron Kinloss. We had to show it when we went through the gate. That could be instituted again. It's not a major expense.
And just to follow up with Don, that is something that council has discussed. We learned that, Keith, after our free dump day that went awry on us. So we found that we had Kincardine residents were actually in lineup to come to the Huron Kinloss dump for free day. But we also know we have Huron Kinloss residents using the Kincardine dump. So that's happening too as well. But it's definitely a discussion that we've had at the council table, and I think we have to get to that point. So, and again, when we have a lot of cottagers coming down to the lake and all that, they might be bringing contractors from out of the city too. So it could actually be Huron Kinloss residents just using contractors from different areas. So, but it is something that we've had that discussion.
When this truck went by, he lost 3 bags of garbage right out in front of our place. One spilled all over the road. There was 4 of us neighbors got together. We went out with the shovels and brooms and garbage cans and cleaned this stuff up, because somebody was going to end up with flat tires. I know the person where it come from. I stopped him on the way back, and he told me it's cheaper to dump at Huron Kinloss than it is in any other spot that he can go to. So just a heads up, guys, our landfill site is nearly full. We're going to have to do something pretty darn soon. That's my comment, so thank you.
My name is Michael Bear. I'm a fourth generation cottage owner. I'm a semi-permanent resident now, hopefully a permanent resident when I retire in 4 years. In other municipalities where I've led, the council and the government have tried to limit the tax increase to inflation or just a little bit above inflation. One of the reasons I took over my parents' cottage was because they could no longer afford the tax increases. So I know raising taxes is something council does not want to do, but what measures will you take to achieve cost savings to limit tax increases from not being that above the rate of inflation?
So I think it was said earlier this evening, Michael, and thank you for that question. Here in Kinloss's tax rate increase this year was 1.9%. The tax increases, and again, I think I mentioned this through my discussions, we don't know what's coming down the line. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we were hit with a drastic cutting of our OMP funding, which is Ontario Municipal Partnership funding. And that was coupled with the OPP policing budget that came in when the province mandated per household, what's the word I'm looking for, per household budgeting or whatever. Bottom line is that year, folks, we were facing, and correct me if I'm wrong, about a $300,000 deficit over the year before that. So what does council do? We have two choices: raise taxes to meet those demands that we had no control over the OPP budget whatsoever, and also we had no control over the OMP funding. So all we can do is go from year to year, Michael, and that's just all you can do, because we don't know what's coming down the line. And it's easy to sit here and promise that we won't do that, but there might be years that we have to do that. We're fortunate. Here in Kinloss has grown 4.1% since the last census. We have a lot of people moving in. We're going to hit another $20 million this year in building. We had 20 million last year. We had 50 houses built 2016, 2017, and we're probably going to hit that now. So with that growth, hopefully can offset some of those other expenditures.
Earlier, Mitch said that the tax increase over the last 8 or 9 years was 38%. I find, well, I know my taxes went up more than that, so someone's had to have gone down. However, spending in 2009 was 9.4 million. This year it is 20.9 million. That's more than doubled. So how can you have double the spending and have only a 38% increase in taxes?
I know it's getting awful expensive because I can't even give the farms to my kids and expect them to keep it the way taxes are going right now. I know if my dad was still alive, he'd be rolling over in his grave because he was in council for a lot of years and he knew where the dollars came from.
One of our biggest problems with farmland in the last reassessment with impact is we did get nailed. In 4 years, we'll be going up 54%. We had been lagging behind and maybe should have been going up over the last number of years when residential was taking it on the chin for years with assessment growth along the lakeshore especially. Our tax rate is the same all the way through the municipality. It does classify on your assessment. or your impact assessment is how we tax your building. So a lot of times when you talk about a 38% tax increase, assessment would have been the rest of the growth, is where all the dollars have come from and the growth of the new buildings and stuff.
In teaching, we call this wait time. Wait time. We give people a chance to think and pose their questions. Are there any other questions? We're a little bit ahead of that 8:45 time, but that's okay too. So if there are any last questions, and there are, see, wait time works.
My name's Donna Moffat. I'm from Kinloss Township. I have a question, two questions actually. Number one, why did they replace the culvert on our road? That's one. And I presume Mitch or Don could answer that question. And number two, I'm a hockey fan, and I always see the Ripley Wolves, Lucknow Lancers, and Township of Huron Kinloss sponsors the Ripley Wolves. Why not both? Or why either, as far as I'm concerned?
On the Ripley Wolves thing, I think, yes, there is a wee bit of a sponsorship there. The Lucknow Lancers, I know they've had a delegation to the Lucknow Rec because it's in a joint board, so I hope they really push that board at the Lucknow Rec to get the same sponsorship as the Wolves get out of us. And the culvert, it was wore out, is my understanding. It's one that I didn't go and look at, Donna, but I will take their word on it. I did see the bottom of it, and it wasn't in good shape when they dug it out. So.
Okay, I just.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, I was wondering if another time you could have recording on the questions and answers sent out to the people. That would be quite nice, if you could have written answers.
So the organizers are here, and I think they heard you, and they'll take that into consideration for another time. Thank you. Well, I guess I haven't answered any questions tonight. That was my best one. All right, I think I've given you enough wait time. If there are no further questions, we're going to finish this evening with a 3-minute summary from each of our candidates, and we're going to work ourselves in the opposite direction this time. So that means we'll start with Dawn and work our way down to Brian.
Thanks, Suzanne. Well, when I was first elected, I was like everybody else and thought we spent way too much money and had way too much staff and everything else. Now I believe we've got the right amount of staff. We'll never have enough money, but the money we do have, we're in very good shape. We've got like $10 million in reserves. So when the water tower does go here, we do have $1 million from the Lucknow Water to start it. We'll be able to borrow from ourselves to build that tower and pay it back out of the water reserves moving forward. Some numbers we've spent. The Campbell Street project down here was $450,000 this year just for the drainage on that project. We spent $800,000, I think, on concession 6 in Huron Township and paving. Our roads budget, just paving and construction alone, Lakeshore, Lucknow, Ripley, there's streets in every town being done, like $3 million. So there's a lot of money being spent that people maybe don't see everywhere unless you drive all around the municipality. Our bridges, we do have a bridge maintenance program. We do put gas tax money in there to try and extend the life of our bridges because we have some roads with 3 and 4 bridges on them that could be $3 million bridges each. So we do have to keep moving forward. Nobody likes paying taxes or a big increase. We do try and be responsible, but we have to set the municipality up to succeed in the future. So When I was first elected, I think my first budget put in front of me was 12.5%. And now we're down this year to 1.9%. A lot of that is to do with assessment growth, to do with impact, the reassessment every 4 years, which has been a good thing to us. But moving forward, I do believe we have to keep the township strong. We do have to tax a little bit each year to keep things going in the right direction. So in summary, I'm just going to carry on the way we went for the last 10 years, trying to make the township a better place, more attractive for businesses and individuals to move to. So on October 22nd, I ask for your support again. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next person. Yep, thank you.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to try and get these taxes to go down. I don't know what we're going to have to do, but things are wrong the way they're being run right now. I don't know, the spending is atrocious. Fellas, I just don't know what we're going to do, but we got to do something because things aren't right. So that's about all I got to say. I'm new at this, but I hope to do something to help the people. So thanks for now then.
Thank you, Perry. Mitch?
Good, thank you, Suzanne. I kind of disagree with Perry. I think our municipality is in really good shape. We have zero debt, folks, zero. We have no debt. And there's a lot of municipalities can't say that. Have we had to tax to get to these places? Without a doubt. But that is the way this council decided to run our business. This is your assets that we're talking about. So you are in essence hiring or electing us to look after your assets and your money. Our staff do a heck of a job. I dare say we have the best staff in all of the county of Bruce. I know it because I hear it. We have dedicated counselors. The easiest thing, and I think I said this earlier tonight, is to have 0% increase. That's easy, folks. Then your asset diminishes. And down the road, to fix those assets when they start breaking, you have to borrow money. And in turn, that's debt onto your tax dollars that get paid every month, or every 3 months, sorry. So as you probably heard in the, with Mr. Ford and the audit that they did, the fourth biggest line item for the province of Ontario was servicing the debt. We do not have that here. Every cent goes to everything we need to run our business. We provide soggy mobility for those folks in our seniors' homes or those people that can't get around. That was something that was asked for our people, so we added that to the tax base. We pay doctor recruitment to 2 hospitals so we can bring doctors into our communities. And I know over the years I've heard this loud and clear. Without doctors in our communities, what do we have? We're going to put money towards that Lucknow medical facility. We have doctors committed to coming here. That's cost money, but we're committed to do that. We also are getting our fire departments up to the point where they're NFFP certified. I know Pete Steer was here earlier. I don't know there he is anymore. But we were recognized in Ripley by the Ontario Fire Marshal for having our firefighters up to the highest level of training. That costs money. We paid for that because we feel that's important to service you, our community members. And to put it into perspective, a $246,000 assessed property value, which is the median for this municipality. This is what you get for $3,600. You get 24-hour water service, sewer service, OPP, land ambulance. You get to send your kids, if you have kids, to school. You get to have your roads paved. You have them garbage pickup. You have recycling, all for $300 a month. You tell me where you get a better bang for your buck than what we provide for services to our community. Put that into perspective. What do you pay for heat, hydro, propane, or your cell phone service, folks? Add that up, and what do you get out of that after a month? So I'm here to defend everything we've done in the past, and I look forward, if elected, working with the new council, and I will continue as mayor offering these services. I'm not here to cut services for our folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch and Brian.
Thank you. I have no objection to most of the spending that's done within the township. I do object to small parts of it. The economic development, far too much. $900,000 per year is way too much. As far as paving the roads, I'll stand on that. We cannot afford to pave all of the roads. Why do we not have water going to all the farmhouses? Once again, we can't afford it. Well, we can't afford to pave all the town concession roads either. Thank you.
So just to close off, I'd like to thank all of our candidates for coming this evening and for answering all of your questions. I'd like to thank you for coming and asking the questions, and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight. Thank you very much.